You know, I'm gonna give the production team their props because I thought that the AI arena twist was actually super solid, and I also thought it changed the gameplay for the better this year. But now it looks like Big Brother is back on their same old BS. That's right, they have now introduced another brand new twist to the season, and this one is gonna have this week looking just a little bit weird. There's gonna be some interesting stuff to talk about today, including the new HOH's plans for the week and what exactly this new twist is. But before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button below if you have not yet. Live feed recaps like this really are the best way to know what's actually going on in this house day to day. And there have been so many golden moments in this season in particular that just did not make the TV edit. So if you are interested in a more deep dive into what actually goes on in this house day to day, this is the channel for you. Now, let's get started. So, as we just saw in the last episode, Quinn was just evicted in a 4-2 vote. And even though it was pretty clear that he was the target when he was put on the block, he still looked pretty shook to be evicted. Quinn had been doing his best to campaign for himself his past few days in the house, and there were even some times where he was just getting into a little bit of motion. He was making some good points, and some people were giving him just a little bit of hope. But ultimately, in order to stay, he would have had to convince Cam, MJ, and Chelsie all to keep him. And after all the work and all the conversations they had done getting him on the block in the first place, it was just super unlikely to happen. His rep was tarnished at that point. He was already seen as a sketchy player, and his refusal to separate and part ways with Leah was not helping him at all either. Now, Leah did try to help as much as she could. I mean, she was able to convince Angela to keep Quinn, which I didn't think would happen. But now that Angela and Leah are on the outside of the vote, it kind of puts them in awkward spots as outcasts. I mean, Angela was an outcast from the beginning, but it definitely didn't help Leah. There are still two other very strong trios in the game, and they both outnumber Leah and Angela. So the house is still kind of split into threes, as the house guests head off to compete in the next HOH. The feeds go off for the competition, and they continue to stay off for 18 hours. And yes, I am so serious. Usually, you know, we'll get the feeds back on sometime on Thursday night, but nope, not this time. This time they were off all night and creeping up into the day for seemingly no reason. I think that was the worst part about all of this, is that we got no explanation from production or anybody. So of course people have been speculating all sorts of stuff, but there was really no way of actually knowing what was going on. The feeds did eventually come back to us on Friday morning though, and when we did, we saw that the entire backyard had been completely changed into this weird funhouse carnival type setup. There were all these props and carnival games and weird backdrops set up everywhere. And we also saw all of this laundry and pillows and cots set up outside. After seeing all that stuff, it quickly became clear that we are in for yet another twist where the house guests are stuck living outside for the week. Looks like they are all locked in the backyard and they can't go inside the house at all. And I know this sounds kind of exciting on the surface, but they've done pretty much this exact same thing a couple years ago with that Dire Fest twist, and in reality it just killed a lot of momentum for the season. Stuff like this tends to slow things down and make the gameplay kind of dull, and to me, this season is no exception. I mean, this was probably the slowest day of the feeds all season long because all the house guests are doing are just sitting outside, hot and uncomfortable, and not talking game and really, really bored. Hopefully things pick up a little bit later on in the week, but for now, there is still some game yet to be played. During the feed outage, there was also an HOH comp that took place. It was apparently an endurance comp that lasted over 10 freaking hours. Wow. This is obviously why the feeds were down for so long, but I just think if you're gonna have a really long endurance comp like this, to me it would be really, really nice to be able to see it live on the feeds. That's all I'm saying. Now, I did think that the winner of this HOH was a pretty interesting one too, because it's really one of the more wild card options that we have out there. In a game where there are two obvious sides, this week could have very easily been a predictable one. But it may get a little more interesting now because Leah is our new HOH. That's right, after losing her two closest allies back to back, after being thrown under the bus for damn near no reason, Leah now has the power in the house. I thought this was a good outcome for Team Fun Feeds at least, because there's a few places that Leah could go here. She doesn't have any super close allies anymore. She only kind of sort of has Angela. And even though their relationship is rocky, last week Leah and Angela were gossiping about how Chelsie and T-Kor were the ones to beat.
Right before she even won HOH, like, I was super good with her. Like, I was like,
yeah, I was too. We promised each other we wouldn't put each other up.
Last week, Leah also mentioned that she would want to put both Chelsie and T-Kor up on the block together, but the question is, will she actually do it? Is she really bold enough to target both trios at the same time, or is she just going to pick one side instead? Going after Chelsie would surely be the obvious choice for Leah to make, but right before the eviction, they had this long conversation about some of the drama that had happened between them, and they were able to smooth things over and make up a little bit, which is very, very lucky for Chelsie.
I hope my actions and how I've this last week have showed you that I am not gunning for your head. I was pissed, but talk through that with you. I didn't change anything. I discussed that with you.
And just like that, it's looking like Chelsie is good with Leah for now, at least. Leah also goes to meet with Cam, and she's telling him about how she wants to rebuild that relationship and trust between him and Chelsie too.
Chelsea's getting me because she was like, although I did like to put a ring on her, and then he called Rubina. I'm like, you know what they say for me?
Yeah.
I'm like, I've rooted for Chelsie from day one.
Yeah.
Like, and I know I haven't been able to show that. Now I can.
No, that's what I'm saying.
In this conversation, she's also hinting that she wants to target the Kimo trio, and Cam is definitely for this and pushing for that to happen too.
Do you know what you were doing?
I personally either do Rubina, Kimo, and just rock out with Vito, keep them the same, or do T-Kor up first.
So now it's really looking like Leah officially has her sights set on the trio of T-Kor, Kimo, and Rubina. Maybe from her perspective, this trio makes more sense because they're the more obvious group left in the game. It's like the Chelsie, Cam, and NJ group is really, really obvious to us, the audience. But they're not really seen as that locked into the rest of the house, and perception is everything here. So right now, Rubina and Kimo are her two options, with T-Kor likely being the renom. I think if she's gonna take a shot here, it's probably best that she goes right for the head of the snake and tries to cut T-Kor. But I do also get some of the fear that's associated with targeting some of these bigger social players. She probably doesn't want people to hate her personally for it, but hey, sometimes that's the risk you gotta take.
As far as like my plan and where you sit in my plan, you will always be a part of my plan. If I have anything to do with it. And like, as far as where do I see you fitting in, I have never seen you not in it.
Don't get me wrong here, I love the way that Chelsie and T-Kor play. But they're probably the biggest threats to win, and keeping them in the game is really, really bad for Leah. There's still enough room for anything to happen this week though, so we'll just have to see. At the time of this recording, nominations still haven't happened yet, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be seeing Kimo and Rubina up on that block. Of course, I want to know, what do you think of Leah's HOH plans this week? Do you think she's making the right choice, or is there someone else you should nominate instead? Let me know in the comments below. I did see a few people out there suggesting that maybe she puts up Cam and Kimo. That way she could still save face with the girls while still getting both sides to fight each other. And then Leah would just target whichever side loses the veto. And I do think that's a pretty good plan, but I just don't know if Leah is crafty enough to come up with that one. Of course, I'll be back here to update you all whenever something big changes, including the results of the veto competition. But until next time, bye.